Hey folks, welcome back. I am out here working on the van. I installed a really nice kitchen. You can see I've got some cabinets that I built, installed a cooler slide, took the van for a ride, and it stalled at a light, and now it won't start. I got it home, but once cold it wouldn't start. So I was hoping to delay the fuel injector project until later, but I think the van has decided for me that we've got a problem under the hood. I did a bunch of diagnosis using Forescan, and I'm pretty sure that what I've got is a short in the under valve cover harness. That's a pretty common problem on these engines, but it's a little bit of a pain to replace because I got to take the valve covers off. If I'm going to that trouble, I am going to do the whole thing at once. So I'm going to do glow plugs, injectors, and under valve cover harnesses. And while I'm in there, I may as well reseal the fuel bowl because it's been leaking when it gets really cold. So I've got a big project ahead of me, and I'm going to show you how it goes. So the process here is I'm going to disconnect the batteries. I'm going to take out the intake. I'm going to take out the resonator. I'm going to disconnect all of the wiring to the valve cover harnesses, and then I will hopefully at that point be able to remove the valve covers. I've done this on the parts van, but I've never put it back together. I've been prepping for this for a while. I've known that the van is running pretty rough when it's cold, which is a sign of injector wear. So I had a set of injectors that I pulled out of that parts van, and when this happened I realized I needed to do this quickly. Fortunately, I was already in touch with Rosewood Diesel Shop, and Jim over there has done an awesome job with communication and a really fast turnaround on a premium rebuild for my injectors that I pulled out of the parts van. So those should be arriving this afternoon, which is amazing. So that's going to give me like a 1 week turnaround on this whole project. So I want to give a shout out to Jim over at Rosewood, and also Jeff at dieselorings.com walked me through a bunch of the other parts that I would need for the fuel bowl reseal and for the glow plug replacement and under valve cover harness replacement. So I really appreciate the help from those folks. Something that I learned is when you go online and you look at under valve cover harnesses, there are a lot of kits out there that have glow plugs and wiring and the gasket all put together, built in one, and those are usually made in China and of lower quality than if you buy the OEM or US made gaskets that come separately from the harnesses. So when I bought these through Diesel O-Rings, I got the separate components, and I'll have to put those all together. So I'll show you what that looks like. Here are the valve cover gaskets and wiring harnesses. So these wiring harnesses here will be installed on the inside of the gaskets. And these gaskets are reusable, but I wanted to do this once. I don't really want to mess around. It's really hard to access everything under the doghouse. So I'm just doing all of the parts at once. And then when these fail, when these wiring harnesses short out, oftentimes there's issues with the pigtail as well. So I'm going to replace the exterior pigtails. And so I've got two of those. Those are Alliant Power OEM grade pigtails. So that's going to be my under valve cover harness and pigtail replacement. I'm going to be doing glow plugs as well. I got some genuine Motorcraft ZD30s. These are the update to the ZD11s. And there are a lot of knockoffs apparently out there, so I would recommend buying these from a reputable manufacturer, not Amazon or eBay. And then I got my O-ring kit for injectors and for the fuel bowl reseal, and so should be in good shape with all the various plastic bits that I need for this project. I've removed the doghouse cover just to give you a look at what we're dealing with under here. And it's not too bad. In fact, on the vans, if you want to work on the turbo, it's way better access than on a truck. But reaching up in to work on the injectors is a little difficult because of how tight the doghouse is. So here's the driver's side. Accessing this, we'll move the wiring harness out of the way, have to remove the intake, we'll have to remove the crankcase breather vent there, and then a variety of different swivels and ratchets will get those valve cover bolts off, and that's going to allow us access on that side. Over here on the passenger side, life is a little harder, so we can get in there. We'll have to remove this resonator box and I'm hoping that I can work around the turbo. I've seen other folks do it, so hopefully that will work out. I'd rather not remove the turbo at this point. We will also go from under the hood to access the front end, because the far end injectors, they're pretty difficult to get to from this side. So I'll do some of this from inside the doghouse and some from under the hood, and just being careful while I do that not to bump or break any of the wiring connectors on the back of the alternator or air conditioning compressor. Got the batteries disconnected, got all my tools laid out, and it's time to start taking things apart. On the driver's side, I've got everything detached from the valve cover. Interestingly, it looks like I'm missing a bolt, so that's not awesome. I got the pigtail disconnected. I wire brushed all the dirt out of the gap between the gasket and the head, just so when I take the valve cover off, it'll be clean. I've got some rags in where the breather vent was. I've got the oil fill disconnected, so I'm ready to remove that valve cover. Now on the passenger side, access is a little bit worse. So I've done the same cleanup in there. Let's see if I can get that light better for you. This side's going to be the real difficult one, but I think I'm ready to remove those valve covers. Some of these are easier than others, so getting down in to these ones here is a little trickier. But basically a combination of various swivels and different ratchets, and we'll get those all out. Got the driver's side valve cover removed, and the next thing to do is pull the oil rail plugs, and that's going to let the oil rail drain down into the crankcase. So there's two of those, they're right there and there, and I'm going to replace the O-rings on those. I just got the last of the passenger side bolts loose. This one is a real challenge. The bolts that are easy from here, yeah, you can just reach from inside, but the front ones, I'll show you what you have to do. So to get at that one right there, it's actually a stud on the dipstick bracket, and so that one's not too bad. But then the two on the bottom side there are a real challenge. The move is actually to come in from under the passenger wheel well. And you can get to them right there. You can see those two indents in the valve cover. I was able to get on them with a long breaker bar, loosen them up, and then pop them out by hand. Of course, you can't just pull the damn thing out. I got the passenger side valve cover off, took two hands, so I wasn't able to film that. It's just a jigsaw puzzle. You gotta twist and bend and push and get it past the wiring and things. And then it comes right out. And I found our problem. So if you can see right there on the blue wire, see how the harness is split? The wire insulation is split. So I'm sure that we've got a couple more of those, and that's causing some shorts. And that's why we've got those error codes on this side. So replacing this harness is likely going to solve one of the problems what caused me to stall out the other day. And then while we're in here doing the glow plugs and the injectors, we should be in good shape going forward for a long time. So to pull these harnesses, these just unplug from the glow plugs. So you pull all the white ones. Found it's easy to get in with the screwdriver and pop those loose. And then you unclip these and they'll pop right out of the injectors, and that loosens up the whole harness. And of course you can't do this while looking, you just kind of got to do it all by feel. This is the joy of owning a Powerstroke Econoline. Alright, there we go. And now that should just pop right off. Take a closer look at that harness. There's a split on that glow plug wire. There's a split on that yellow wire right there. Yeah, this thing was trashed. Alright, I've got my valve covers off on both sides. And now I just need to clean up the holes from some of these bolts were missing, so I gotta clean up those holes a little bit. And then I'm gonna remove those oil rail plugs and remove the glow plugs and injectors. I got my oil drain plugs removed, and now I'm pulling the actual injectors. So what you want to do is pull the bolt off of the back, so you can see, like over on this one, there's one, let's see. So there's this bolt here. We pull that bolt out, it's 8 mil. You don't have to worry about the one in front. I went ahead and removed the oil deflector with a 1/8 inch Allen, and now this sleeve slides forward, this hold down bracket, and with that forward I could just lever the injector up and out. It just takes a little wiggling to do it, and that'll come right out. I just use a little cardboard to protect my edge so I don't ding up that mating surface. And now that I've got that injector loose, and we can pull that one on out. Now this is going to be an oily mess when this comes out, so be prepared with a spot to put it. Alright, and there we got an injector. Looks like the tip's intact. Copper crush washer's on there. So that's good. Take a look at the hole. Alright, we'll clean that out with some brake cleaner before seating the new injectors. I'm working on pulling the glow plugs, and the glow plugs are pretty straightforward. You simply get a 10 mil deep socket over them, like so, and pop them loose. And then you can use a piece of 5/16 or 1/4 inch tubing to slip over the top, and that just lets you spin that the rest of the way because it's hard to get the socket out otherwise. And then that should come out just, oops, just like so. There we go. And a concern is that the tips on the aftermarket glow plugs can swell and get stuck, so I'll be happy when I have all 4 of these out on this side. Things are going good. I've got 7 of the 8 injectors out, all except for number 3. And number 3 is on the passenger side, right here where the doghouse cover comes in real close. And so to take that one off, we have to take the solenoid off. So we'll just come in here with a T20 Torx bit on a swivel socket and remove the solenoid, and that'll give me the clearance to pull that last injector. Don't do this. See that circle down there? That's a socket. Good thing I got a grabber. Better than in the head. So this is a video inspection of the injector cups. There is a chunk of something in there that shouldn't be. So we'll have to clear that one out. Turns out it was a piece of the injector O-ring. There's a chunk of shit in that one. There's number 1. Looking pretty good. Number 3. 5, 7 needs a little work. All right, I'm back at it, day 2, and I am getting ready to put things together. I am waiting on my injectors still. They got stuck in shipping purgatory. I've decided, since I'm not removing the turbo right now, I will have to rebuild that at some point. I'm not going to reseal the fuel bowl right now. I think it's going to be really difficult to get the fuel bowl in and out without having the turbo out, and I am going to rebuild that relatively soon. So I think I'm going to leave that project for later and just focus on the injectors. I stuck a hose down in the glow plug holes and tried to suck out any fluid. There wasn't really anything in there, so I will just turn the engine over by hand with the glow plugs out before starting to make sure I've got any fluid out of the cylinders. I've cleaned out those glow plug holes and the injector holes as well as I can, and now it's pretty much time to put things back together. Jim at Rosewood did a really incredible job getting these injectors rebuilt quickly and shipped out to me in a hurry. Beautiful. Alright, getting the new injectors in. I've got these 2 front ones seated. You can see they're sitting a little deeper than the others, and the way I'm doing this is just tapping on them with a mallet and a piece of wood just to not mark up the solenoids, and dropping them down until I hear a clear ringing sound. And it's a little unclear to me, but I think I'm getting it there. So I'll do all 8 of these, and then we'll turn the engine over a couple times by hand to get the oil out after torquing them down. Some things that would have been helpful for me ahead of time to know would be I needed a inch-pounds torque wrench that goes to 120 to 130 inch-pounds, and I did not have one of those, so I'm waiting on one to be delivered. Should be here this afternoon. Next thing I did is replace the pigtails on my injector wiring harnesses. I replaced the valve covers, just set them in place temporarily while I did that wiring, and you can see there I replaced those with heat shrink butt connectors. This one had been done before, and it was done with these really crappy automotive connectors that let in moisture. So cut the wire back a little bit, fortunately I had enough to work with, and now I've got new pigtails. And so next thing up is to spec down, or to torque down the injectors to spec, which is 120 to 130 inch-pounds. Injectors are all installed. I've got the oil spouts back on, and now it's time to close the valve cover and turn the engine over. I'm going to turn it by hand and hopefully get some oil out. Turning the engine over by hand on the van is almost impossible because I can't really get in there. So I've got the battery hooked up, I've got the valve cover set on this side with some oil rags to catch. I've got this one exposed so I can see what happens, and I am going to bump the starter. Got the battery hooked back up, and I'm gonna see if we shoot some oil out. So here goes. Hopefully we don't have an explosion. Well, it's definitely pushing some fluid out. The idea here is to turn the engine over with the glow plugs out so any fuel or oil that leaked into the cylinders gets pushed out. Otherwise, you run the risk of hydrolocking and damaging the engine. I'm not sure what I'm accomplishing here, but certainly is doing something. You can see we shot some oil all the way up there out of that number 8 cylinder. So I guess that's what's happening. Let's try it one more time, see if we shoot some more. Looks like not really. Alright, probably good. Alright, now that I've got the cylinders cleared and injectors all working, I'm going to install the glow plugs. So these just drop down into their holes. You can see that threaded hole right there. So they just drop down in there and screw in. Everybody recommends using a piece of tubing. So basically the glow plug goes into the tubing like so, and then we use that just to help get things started in there. Because if you try to put a socket on early, it'll interfere with the solenoid connection. So that just lets us spin that down until it's relatively snug. And once the tubing starts to slip, you can switch it for a socket and torque it down to 168 inch-pounds. Super handy to have a ton of different extensions. I just picked up another 1/4 inch drive, shorty. So that's in. I'm always a little nervous torquing things down. There we go. Click. Glow plug installed. It's hard to see what you're doing under the doghouse. Don't put your glow plug in with the push rods. That's better. Alright, glow plugs are all in. Now it's time to reinstall the valve cover gaskets, harnesses, and hook up all the wiring. So I think this should be a pretty straightforward matter of setting these in there. I'm going to just wipe the seals down and coat these a little with some clean oil. Plug wires attached is challenging, per usual. This one here is being the most difficult. So I'm hoping that with a little camera work I can see better what I'm getting into. Okay, wiring harness is all installed. I got some dielectric grease on this connector, and now I'm hooking up the under valve cover harnesses. And I'm going to test everything with the valve covers off. According to the instructions, I should crank the engine for 45 seconds straight with no stopping, and then wait for a minute or two, and then begin cranking again for 45 seconds. And it should fire during the 3rd cycle. So let's see. All right, here goes. Nervous. Oh, that's good news. I don't love that, but not much I can do about it. Oh, he shot a bunch of oil out the exhaust. That's ugly. Made a damn mess. But worst news is that the right side is not firing at all. So I'm not sure what that means.